Hello friends! Today I would like to talk about such a topic as a defense dog. During my career, I have worked many times in defense costume with different dogs. With dogs of the security service of Ukraine, with dogs that guard private territory, with so-called guard dogs. I was bitten by a very large number of sports dogs at various trainings, at competitions, at seminars, and I would like to tell you a little about my attitude. Everything I will tell you this is my personal attitude. And I hope that you'll be interested to hear what I think about this topic. By the way, please subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. So, a defense dog. Let's first think about what we need protection from. If you look into history, dogs were used to protect livestock, and sometimes even the animal did not enter into a fight with the predator, but some vocalization, some loud sound was enough to scare the predator, and the predator, having lost the effect of surprise, changed his mind to attack the herd. Is it defense? I think so. I didn't want to belittle all the heroic fights with wolf dogs that defended the flocks from attack, but in most cases, in fact, when a predator loses the effect of surprise, it may not even try to attack, because the risk of getting some kind of injury is very high, which means that the predator can die in the wild. Therefore, a guard dog is a dog that cannot even fight the enemy, but can warn about the approach of the enemy, thereby save property, save someone's life, and in fact such dogs are still used very often in villages and private sectors. And it can be any dog, even some Yorkshire Terrier or Chihuahua or any mongrel. That is, a dog that reacts sharply to a danger or a stranger. It can be considered a defense dog. In principle, it performs its function. For example, among my dogs, Tosia, a mongrel that I brought from Chernobyl, has simply super protective qualities. Before the war, when we used to stay somewhere in nature, we had a camp somewhere. Tosia always went around the entire territory, checked that there was no danger, and took such a position to control the entire area where we were. And not a single person, not a single mouse will pass without Tosia noticing and vocalizing it. This is a character trait that may be absent in dogs that some consider to be a guard dogs, because the dog is big, because the dog is strong, self-confident, and it is simply not interesting to him. He does not monitor all these moments, and he can simply sleep through any danger. And small, bell-like dogs, in fact, any dogs except for some representatives of a very kind breeds, such as golden retrievers or labradors. For them, there are no guards at all, and there are still many such dogs, but in principle, small dogs and some mongrels perform this function very well. But if we talk about real work, when a dog works on a person, bites it, fights with it, is ready to give his life to protect his family, then it is a more complicated story, because evolutionarily, man is bigger than a dog, almost any dog at all. The man is smarter, more cunning, and man dominated the dog throughout history, forced the dog to do something for himself, beat the dog if he wanted, ate the dog if he wanted, killed the dog, and therefore, in principle, it is natural for a dog to obey a man and fear a man. And if there is any conflict situation where the dog is forced to conflict with a person, the dog always has a choice: fight or run. And personally, I want to tell you that if the matter has already come to a fight, then 90% of dogs will choose the option of running away. It's not really bad, it's not because the dog doesn't love you, it's not because he's somehow liking, it's just natural for a dog. Because otherwise, the dog has no chance of winning this fight. But men artificially selected dogs that have the ability to fight with people. And this is how breeds of service dogs were formed. Belgian Shepherds, German Shepherds, Rottweilers, and other breeds of dogs that could overcome this quality of character, and some even aspired to it and got pleasure from it. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, there are fewer and fewer such dogs now, and when we see some videos where we see a protective dog bite work, where a dog bites a sleeve or a suit, most of these dogs do it artificially, as if playing. They just understand that this is some kind of a game and they're having so much fun. But if you hit the dog or really start fighting with it, most of these dogs will decide to back off. And as a result, we have the illusion that we have dogs for protection or defense. Yes, there are such dogs, but there are very few of them that are able to really fight with a person. But we have a large number of dogs that are able to warn about danger. And maybe this is even more important than a fight. We did some kind of a trials, sometimes the figurants test each other. For example, one figurant prepares a dog for a certain work, and then another figurant is invited who can test this work. For example, they put $100 bill somewhere in the center of the yard, and the figurant who has never known this dog and sees this dog for the first time in his life is given a task. Like, do you want to have this bill? Come to the yard, if you can take it, it's yours. And if the dog works on you, meaning he will bite you, then no. And then the person involved can, understanding the peculiarities of the dog's training for protection, he can use his abilities so that the dog does not work or bite on him. For example, to appease the dog, start gently playing with it or talking nice things to the dog. Or try to scare the dog, start shouting at it and make some sharp movements. And the dog may simply not react to it. And believe me, the percentage of those dogs that ran away, the percentage of those dogs that don't know what to do, that simply choose the escape option, is very large. In order for a dog to really work, two factors are necessary. The first is good genetics, it must be good at certain data, and it must be properly trained. If they have a dog with good physical and mental data, what about training? We must constantly understand why we need a dog, because the training is very diverse, and depending on what function we expect from the dog, the training will also change. What should he do? Who should he bite? How should he bite? Where should he bite? All of this should be considered. Most people think that if they got a shepherd dog or a cane corso or a dog of any breed and the dog grew up there until like a year, that's all, the dog is a guard dog. In reality, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes it happens, but it's very unlikely, and you have to teach the dog. And I have a question for you. And from whom you want to protect yourself? If a burglar is serious about breaking into your home, what's to stop him from shooting the dog with a gun, or spraying the dog eyes with a pepper spray, or throwing poisoned food, or whatever he wants? That is, if someone systematically decided to rob you or attack you, a dog is an extremely ineffective means of protection. Maybe your dog will try to protect you and even be ready to give his life for you, but if someone decided to do something to you or rob you, and he mean it seriously, then the dog has very little chance against an organized person. There are an incredible number of ways a villain can harm your dog. So from whom you want to protection from? That's the question. The dog is very effective when some bonds are attached to you or if there are any random conflicts. From such cases, the dog will be as effective as possible and will be able to work 100%. If you're walking somewhere and someone approaches you, or withdraw money from an ATM, the dog will protect you. For example, my Prime protects the car very well. That is, when I leave the car with Prime, I never close the car when the dog is there. It is simply impossible to safely approach the car or put your hand in it. He will just kill you. He rattles his teeth so much that the glass on my old car was simply broken when the gas station attendant came to fill up the car. This is his reaction. But this has both pros and cons. Actually, having a dog is really cool. It's cool when it can protect you from some punks, but a traumatic weapon or pepper spray or even a pump shotgun at home will be much more effective than a dog. Because to train, keep, feed, treat the dog to be strong and healthy, this is very long and expensive process. And the dog doesn't live that long. That is, you prepared him for 2 years and he has like 6 to 8 years to live left there. He can function as a guard for 6 to 7 years, considering that all these 6 and 7 years you'll have to feed him, treat him, and process him. So that's the story. Therefore, from the height of my experience, I'm very skeptical about defense dogs and guard dogs, but there are different functions, and let me comment a little on our work. For example, let's start with what people write to me. But a dog bites the leg, and you can hit it with your hand at this time. And it always makes me feel so funny. Do you remember your childhood? Like when you used to play war or something like that? I'm going in a tank, and then I'll take you and bomb you from the plane. Okay, then I'll bomb you from the spaceship then. And why am I? Here's the same analogy. And my dog will grab your leg, and I will stab it with a knife. And then he will let go and cling to another place. That's why it's all quite funny to me. And you can really know and understand this only when the dog really works. Not once in a lifetime, but for example, every day during certain detention. For example, the police, the border service, security service of Ukraine, assault dogs. And when a dog works constantly, the person who works with this dog has certain requirements for it. For example, the dog has worked, and the boss approaches the person and says, "Listen, I didn't really like something about how the dog worked. Let's teach her to work like this." And then the principle of how we prepare this dog depends on this. But there are many variations. In our case, you see the work of sports dogs, and I'm constantly asked, what about in real life? In real life, I don't need a dog to bite someone. I know how to stand up for myself. I know how to defend myself. I don't need it. I have nothing to fear. I have no enemies except the occupiers. I don't need a dog to stand up for me. But there were certain situations in life when the dog worked and everything was fine. But not about that now. No one can predict real life. We cannot expect how the intruder will behave when the dog grabs him by the groin or inner thigh. Because working a lot with dogs, I saw how people are afraid of Yorkshire Terriers when they bark. Like a person reacts something like this, whoa, take it away from me. I've seen people fear little puppies, that when a 70-pound dog comes at you at 40-50 miles in an hour with an intention of attacking you, you never know how a person will react. And situations can be very different, so a person can do something to a dog, or he can simply panic, scream, cry, and ask for help. Our dogs bite the leg because they work according to sports standards, and in this sports regulation, there are penalties for the fact that a dog misses, and he'll receive penalty points for every second of the miss. When the dog flies into the hand, it is very easy to remove the hand from the line of attack. Plus, when the dog is used to constantly jumping, there is a very high risk of injury, because the person involved can fall on the dog itself can fall, there can be different situations. The dog can bite first and then they will both fall together. so we avoid this. Although we teach dogs to bite both legs and arms, it is not important. The dog can have the main attack zone, or there can be a secondary ones. In priority, we teach the dog to bite the leg, because the arm is much easier to remove than the leg and is much safer, because our dogs bite very often, several training sessions per week. It's not that there are several training sessions in life where he ran, bit, and that's it. It's constant training, it's constant work, and if they're constantly jumping, there is a very high risk of injury and a very high risk of making a mistake. That's why we try to teach them to bite their legs. And then this whole story. Can hit with a knife, can hit it with a hand, there can be different situations. But in our case, this will not happen, because these are sports dogs. They will not fight with anyone on the street. No one will hit them with a knife. They will work only on their sports path. And if you distinguish between real work and real service, then again, there are different needs. For example, we have heard such stories from various dog experts that an intruder runs, a dog is unleashed on him, bites him on the shoulder, he tears her off and runs on, or he throws off his jacket and runs on. When a dog injures a person's leg, even if it bites only once, and even if it dies afterwards, the person with that injured leg will not run far away. Therefore, it is one of the advantages when a dog attacks the leg, because tendons, because it is difficult to step on a stick leg, and this is a plus. We work with the Alpha Special Forces from the Security Service of Ukraine and train their dogs. And what is the point? The bottom line is that a dog is not a ninja, and it cannot neutralize an armed person. It has no chances against it. She has no chance of any fight with an armed man. But in this case, the dog has the function of neutralizing someone for a short time, and thus the dog wins a few seconds for the group. For example, a dog ran, a kind of panic begins, it is difficult to shoot a moving dog, it is very fast. Then, when a dog bites you, it becomes almost impossible to conduct aimed fire, plus running, barking, panic, all this leads to confusion, and the armed group has only a few seconds to settle all this confusion. And this time is enough for another armed group to enter the premises and do their work. That is, the dog takes the first blow on itself, it diverts attention from the main group, wins a little time and helps the armed group. That's enough. It doesn't matter where she bites, in the leg, in the hand. If, for example, a dog bites hand and an armed person enters the room, then half of the person's body is occupied by the dog. It becomes much more difficult to shoot, because the dog covers the intruder. And if the dog is from below, then the entire upper part of the intruder's body becomes open to the impact of fire. Therefore, the principles of work depend on practice. Different people, different departments have their own whims, which are worked out by practical work, and each dog has a specific goal. Either the dog drives away the enemy, or the dog wins time, or the dog restrains. For example, a person runs away, and you can let go of the dog ran, grabbed his leg, and that's it, he will not run away anywhere. And so on. It is possible to teach a dog to react to different stimuli in different ways, to work out a different area for a bite. It all depends on what we want to see in the end result, what we use this dog for, and what we need. In our case, the dogs are sporty. We do it in order to enjoy the dog's work, so that no one suffers at the same time. I'm excited for the dog work, I'm excited for the dog to be physically active, I'm excited to achieve a certain result stipulated by the rules, and this is all within the framework of some international competition. And it's very, very cool, and I never think what would happen in real life, because real life is such a big question, no one ever knows who and how will react to a conflict situation, because we will expect one thing, and in critical situation, everything will happen differently. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Don't forget to like, leave a comment if you like the video, and subscribe to the channel. I wish you all the best.